All right. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm
Oh,
doing well.
thanks for coming on this show. I appreciate it. Let's see. You got a book out called The Confessions of a Dork Lord. And I've never heard that expression or even that term. Well, what is a Dork Lord?
Correct. A Dark Lord is I suppose, most famously like Voldemort in Harry Potter or Sauron in the Lord of the Rings. And I suppose if you watch a lot of movies, sort of Thanos, this sort of a generic term applied to sort of big baddies that often appear in sci-fi, but mostly in fantasy novels. Also known as evil overlord. It's a sort of trope that exists in a lot of fantasy movies, wherein you have a kind of big bad, ultimately evil character who tortures the heroes.
Yeah, okay. So he's the villain, essentially.
Correct. Essentially, yeah.
Okay. So, Confessions of a Dork Lord. Is this about you?
No, well, I wasn't born of Dark Lord stock, if that's what you're asking. Just a normal person, but I think there's shades of me in the character. This is a book about the son of a Dark Lord. So picture the son of a Sauron or a Voldemort, the son of one of these big baddies. I've always been sort of fascinated by this sort of evil overlord character. I think they're kind of funny and entertaining, and I thought it'd be kind of a hilarious idea for a middle grade novel if you know you were born from the Dark Lord, born from Sauron and Lord of the Rings, and you were supposed to follow in your dad's footsteps. What would that be like? You would have challenges, I imagine. So it's not exactly me, but we go through some similar kind of relatable struggles. I think any 12-year-old boy does. So maybe at heart we're all the same, right?
Is it is this a typo because I've got it on here as dork?
Yeah, the title itself is a sort of play on words. So the title of the book is Confessions of a Dork, Dork Lord. And if you were to look at the cover, you would see that the
Oh,
A
okay.
in Dark Lord has been crossed out with an O. So I'm sort of playing on that Dark Lord, Dork Lord. He is a Dork Lord, as in a bit of a dork, and but he is the son of a Dark Lord.
I
But
get it.
his tormentors, his bullies, call him the Dork Lord.
Okay, well, the cover explains it much better because on your
It
bio,
does.
it just says dork and it doesn't have that sort of double play
Yep.
there.
Yep. Completely lost without the graphic. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so you pulled up two books. This is a series now?
Correct. Yes. So I've been talking about Grave Danger, which is the sequel to 2020's Confessions of a Dork Lord. So it is a series. It's about his quest to follow in his dad's grim footsteps and to try to get a little respect in the grim world. So the adventure continues.
All right, how many books do you envision this series to be?
I have an idea for a third book called Giant Trouble. There's a lot of wordplay in the series, and I think I could round it out nicely at three.
Okay, is this a comedy?
It is a comedy. It is a series that really pokes fun lovingly at fantasy. So I like to take a lot of fantasy tropes and kind of lovingly play with them and mock them in a way that I love fantasy and I love reading it, um, but it's also pretty fun to make fun of it. So the series does a little bit of both. It's for people who love fantasy and don't mind kind of laughing along with it.
Is this similar to like Not Another Teen Movie kind of spoof on horror films? Yeah.
Interesting. I never thought of it exactly like that, but it is a little bit so. And yeah, where you kind of take the whatever the sort of generic is in any kind of genre, and then you sort of take all the tropes and sort of play with them and maybe occasionally mock them and twist them around. Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it.
What age group is this book geared towards? Is it a specific, or is it for everybody? Or
I mean, I enjoy reading them, and I'm almost 50, but it is because you have to write it in a genre and in an age range. It's a middle grade novel, so that's Harry Potter, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Um, that's the classic like 6 to 11-year-old reader who's kind of first discovering like long form fiction. And so it's keyed for that age range. But, I think I like to write a book that a parent would enjoy reading to their child also.
okay, do you have kids? Do you have young kids?
I do. I have a 15-year-old daughter who was actually in this age range when I started writing and conceiving these books. Books take forever, especially illustrated books. These, for whatever reason, take 2 years to come out. So she's 15 now and was probably like, I don't know, like 9 years old when I sold this series. So she was right in the age range, and I was reading books to her, and that was a lot of what kind of inspired me to write in this genre. Previously, I'd been writing for grown-ups in the fantasy world, but after kind of reading a lot of novels to my daughter, I really wanted to kind of delve into that space, and this was the product of that interest.
Okay, how did she like it?
My daughter has not read the book. It's interesting,
Okay.
both my wife and I, I'm just being honest. I mean, both my wife and I are authors, and we've written between us many, many books. And I think the one thing our kid has sworn to never do is read one of our books, in all honesty. I mean, I think many authors would come up and say their kid reads all their books, but a 15-year-old, it's really the last thing they want to do is read dad's book. Um, she thinks they're cute.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, kids want to be independent of their parents, and especially a teenager. So it doesn't matter how interesting or cool it is what you're doing, right?
Yeah, if I'd written Harry Potter, she wouldn't read it. I mean, I don't think there's any. I think that's part of being a teen, wanting to put a little. You want to discover your own fiction and your own authors that you love, and it's not going to be your mom or dad.
All right. So you didn't suggest to her in any way, here, you want to read my book?
No, no,
No.
she'll have to come to it like any great novel. You can put it on their shelf, and they have to come to it themselves and discover it and fall in love with it. So it is on her shelf. So perhaps one night she'll pull it off and fall in love with the novel.
What else have you written besides this series?
I have written a series for adults, but really everybody. I mean, it falls more squarely in the fantasy genre. I wrote a book called Solari. Came out in 2017 from Tor Books. And in 2021, the second book, Silence of the Solari, came out. Kind of it's a genre-wise kind of in the world of like Game of Thrones, a sort of like complex, mature adult fantasy. That series actually takes place in a setting that's kind of akin to antiquity. So it has a kind of much older, sort of more ritualistic feel than a lot of fantasy that's set in a kind of medieval milieu. Everything is the English countryside. This is actually in a desert. It's almost kind of an ancient Egyptian epic fantasy. So it has a more unique setting. And I have a background in architecture. There's a lot about kind of architecture and history in that series. So I actually started out with much more kind of serious fiction in the fantasy realm. But I'm not about taking a break for some humor occasionally, which is how I found myself writing middle grade.
Let me hit on one of your talking points since you kind of just brought it up. I'll just read it to you. What are some of the ways in which you mixed actual history with fantasy and humor?
I again, because I did start writing for adults, I was really interested in research and history, and certainly something that factors into my adult, more grown up. I hate to say adult, more grown up fantasy. But for kids, I kind of wanted to do something similar. I actually like seeing some reality creep into my fantasy. And when I was thinking about this book, I had been in Prague, and we've been visiting the castle there that you visit when you cross the Charles Bridge, and all along the towers, there's a lot of staining on the walls, and I was looking at it. My daughter was asking me, "What's the staining? What's the staining?" And so we asked the tour guide. She said, "Oh, that's the bathroom. They had something that was essentially a bench that would hang off the side of the castle, and people would sit on that bench and simply release all of the waste onto, and it would dribble down the side of the building." And I thought there'd be a fascinating detail for a middle grade novel. So in my book, they have something they call a sky toilet. And in one particular scene, my character needs to escape from the castle. And so he sends one of his friends up into the sky toilet with a basket full of pine cones, sort of brown, cylindrical shaped things, and sort of shakes them out for about a half hour
nice.
to create a distraction. So, but I've done a few things like that, sort of taking like sort of real history and having a lot of fun with it.
It's funny you mentioned the sky toilet, because there is this, it's a suspension ferry in Wales that runs across a river. It's basically a ferry boat, except it's hanging from cables.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. And at the very top of this thing, there is a sky toilet for the guy who runs the ferry back and forth.
Sure.
And I always thought that if his aim was way off, he would get right into the car that was on the ferry. It was unbelievable. It's just a big hole,
Ah, nice. Yep.
And this thing is still going. I mean, this is like, it's still there. Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
I forget the name of it, but.
Yeah, no, things were simpler back then. You could say.
Thought I'd throw that in. Okay, so do you have any, like a timeline or anything for the third book, do you think? Do you know yet?
I don't. I don't yet. But I think these have been coming out about every 2 years. So I think that's probably this one came out this year. That's probably the approximate time frame for this series.
Well, I think on that, we're going to wind this down. Thanks so much for coming on. Do you have a website you want to give out?
Yeah, so I can be found at my first initial M, last name Johnston, Johnston. So M Johnston Author is my general website. I also use that as my handle for Twitter, where I'll post any news, tours, and my Instagram is also M Johnston Author. And lately, because I write for children, I've added TikTok, which is a horrible place for an adult to be. But I have that one is M Johnston Author X, because apparently there's some other M Johnston Author out there. So, but if you like the TikTok, check it out.
Yeah, I agree with you that TikTok's a horrible place for adults. What do you do on TikTok?
It is.
Do you just promote your book?
Yeah. I've attempted to delve into the media, which seems to involve music and videos and cracking some jokes, which I'm not entirely against. People, my daughter in particular, people of this age range are, to be honest, it's more of a teen site. So for my middle grade work, I'm not even sure it's the exact right audience, but I'm interested in playing around with it and seeing if there's anything there that I can latch on to intellectually and enjoy. Haven't found it yet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be slim pickings. We, about 3 months ago, my producer and I, we said, maybe we should get on TikTok.
Yep.
So we tried two different things. We tried doing promos for our shows, which got no views.
Yeah.
And then I put up some silly videos of my dogs playing, and those got thousands of views.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
I don't know.
How it's just America's Funniest Home Videos. I was like, we had this when I was 8 years old.
Yeah, for 1 minute.
Yeah.
For 1 minute long. That's about the attention span for most people these days, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Well, listen, thanks for coming on the show. Best of luck with your book series, and I hope everything